Maya Chen sat at her desk in the back row of the classroom. The lights above her head were bright and white. They made everything look cold. She stared at her laptop screen. It was completely empty. Just a white page with a blinking cursor. Professor Hartley stood at the front of the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and glasses. He smiled at the students. "Your final project is simple," he said. "Build an AI chatbot that can tell stories. Nothing too complicated. Just show me you understand the basics." Maya felt her stomach tighten. She was 28 years old. 6 months ago, she had quit her job at a big company. The work there made her tired and sad. She wanted to do something different. So she joined this coding bootcamp called Tech Venture Academy. Now, she was here with 20 other students. Most of them were younger than her. They all seemed excited about the project. Maya heard them talking to each other. "I'm going to make mine tell fantasy stories," said Tom, who sat 2 rows ahead. "Dragons and magic and stuff." "Mine will do science fiction," said another student named Rachel. "Space adventures. Time travel. That kind of thing." Maya listened, but said nothing. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking a little. She always got nervous before big projects. The other students kept planning their chatbots. They talked about heroes and villains. They talked about plot twists and happy endings. Everyone seemed to know exactly what they wanted to do. But Maya's mind went somewhere else. It went to a place she tried not to think about too often. It went to her sister. Emma had been Maya's younger sister. She died 3 years ago. She was only 16 years old when she passed away. She had leukemia. It was a type of cancer that attacks the blood. Maya remembered the hospital room. White walls. Beeping machines. The smell of cleaning products. Emma had been so small in that big bed. But she never stopped smiling. Even when she was in pain, she smiled. In her last few months, Emma started keeping a journal. She wrote in it every day. She wrote about the people she saw. The nurses. The doctors. The other patients. Her family members who came to visit. But Emma didn't just write what people said or did. She wrote about what she saw beneath the surface. She wrote about the sad nurse who pretended to be happy. She wrote about the janitor who was lonely. She wrote about their dad who tried to be strong but was breaking inside. Emma could see things other people missed. She could see the hidden parts of people. The parts they kept secret. The parts that hurt. Maya remembered reading the journal after Emma died. Their mother had given it to her. "Emma wanted you to have this," she had said. Maya read every page. She cried through most of it. But she also felt amazed. Her little sister had understood people in a way Maya never could. Emma saw their pain. She saw their dreams. She saw the tiny beautiful moments they overlooked. Now, sitting in this classroom, Maya thought about that journal. She thought about how Emma had this gift. The gift of really seeing people. Professor Hartley was still talking. "Remember," he said, "keep it simple. The goal is to demonstrate basic skills. Natural language processing. Narrative structure. Don't overthink it." Maya barely heard him. An idea was forming in her mind. It was different from what everyone else was doing. It was probably not what the professor wanted. But she couldn't stop thinking about it. What if she didn't make a chatbot that told made-up stories? What if she made something different? Something that could do what Emma did. Something that could really see people. The class ended. Students packed up their laptops. They walked out in groups, still talking excitedly about their projects. Maya stayed in her seat. She stared at the empty screen. Her best friend from class, Carlos, stopped by her desk. "Hey, you're okay?" he asked. "You look worried." Maya looked up at him. Carlos was a good guy. He was 32 and had 3 kids at home. He worked at a grocery store during the day and came to coding class at night. He was always kind to everyone. "I'm fine," Maya said. "Just thinking." "About the project?" "Yeah, what are you going to make?" Carlos asked. Maya hesitated. "I'm not sure yet. Maybe something about real people." "Real stories?" Carlos nodded. "That sounds cool. Different from everyone else." After Carlos left, Maya sat alone in the empty classroom. The lights hummed above her. She opened a new document on her laptop. At the top, she typed one word: Echo. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed in her small apartment. The streetlight outside made shadows on her ceiling. She kept thinking about Emma, about the journal, about all the people who go through life feeling unseen. She got up at 2 a.m. She made coffee and sat at her kitchen table. She opened her laptop and started working. Maya decided what she wanted to create. It wouldn't be like the other chatbot. It wouldn't tell fairy tales or adventure stories. Instead, it would listen. It would let people share real moments from their lives. Then it would reflect those moments back to them. But not just repeat them. It would help people understand what those moments really meant. She knew this was risky. It wasn't what Professor Hartley asked for. It might not even work. But Maya felt something pulling her forward. She felt like Emma was guiding her somehow. Over the next few days, Maya worked constantly. She went to class during the day. At night, she worked on Echo until her eyes hurt and her back ached. She fed the AI thousands of pieces of text, poetry about loss, letters from soldiers to their families, diary entries from people throughout history. She included excerpts from Emma's journal, being careful to remove any identifying information. She taught Echo to look for certain things: pain that people tried to hide, love that went unspoken, small moments that carried big meaning, the tiny details that revealed the truth about someone's heart. Her classmates were moving fast on their projects. They showed each other demos. Tom's fantasy chatbot could already generate stories about knights and dragons. Rachel's science fiction bot created tales about alien planets. Maya's Echo couldn't tell any stories yet. It could barely do anything. She started to worry. Maybe she had made a mistake. Maybe she should have just done what the professor asked. One evening, her study group met at a coffee shop. There were 5 of them who usually worked together: Tom, Rachel, Carlos, a quiet girl named Lynn, and Maya. Everyone shared their progress. Tom's chatbot was working well. Rachel's was almost finished. Lynn had built one that told detective stories. They were all proud. Then they asked Maya to show them what she had. Maya hesitated. "It's not really ready," she said. "Come on," Carlos said. "We're all friends here. Just show us what you've got so far." Maya slowly opened her laptop. Her hands were shaking again. "Okay," she said. "But remember, it's not done. And it's not like yours. It doesn't tell made-up stories." She explained what Echo was supposed to do. The others looked confused. "So, it just repeats what people say?" Tom asked. "No," Maya said. "It's supposed to help people understand their own experiences better, to see the deeper meaning in their memories." Rachel frowned. "I don't get it. That's not really a story generator." "I know," Maya admitted. "But I wanted to try something different." Carlos looked at the screen. "Can I test it?" he asked. Maya nodded. She was nervous. Echo was still very basic. It probably wouldn't work well. Carlos thought for a moment. Then he spoke into the microphone. He told a brief story about his father. How his father had come to this country from Mexico 30 years ago. How he worked 3 jobs to support his family. How he never complained, even though he was always tired. Maya typed the memory into Echo. She pressed enter. The AI processed the information. Then words appeared on the screen. The response was simple, but it said something Carlos had never quite put into words. It talked about courage that doesn't look like courage. About love that shows up as sacrifice. About the weight that strong people carry so others don't have to. Carlos read the words. He went very quiet. His eyes became wet. He stood up suddenly. "I need to get some air," he said. He walked out of the coffee shop. The others stared at Maya. "What just happened?" Lynn asked. Maya didn't know what to say. She looked at the screen. At the words Echo had generated, she felt scared and excited at the same time. Maybe she had built something that actually worked. Or maybe she had built something dangerous. Something that reached too deep into people's hearts. She closed her laptop. Outside the window, she could see Carlos standing on the sidewalk. He was wiping his eyes. Maya wondered if she should have just built a simple story generator like everyone else. But it was too late now. She had gone too far to turn back. After that night at the coffee shop, things changed. Carlos stopped coming to their study group meetings. He sent Maya a text message 2 days later. It said, "Sorry, I ran out. Your AI thing really got to me. Made me think about my dad in a new way. Maybe too intense for me right now." Maya felt terrible. She had upset her friend. She hadn't meant to make him cry. She had just wanted to build something meaningful. The other students in her study group started avoiding her too. Not in a mean way. They were just uncomfortable. Tom and Rachel were polite when they saw her in class. But they didn't invite her to work sessions anymore. Lynn was the only one who still talked to her. One day after class, Lynn pulled Maya aside. "What you're building is scary," Lynn said quietly, "but also kind of beautiful. I think people don't know how to feel about it." Maya nodded. She understood. She didn't know how to feel about it either. She decided to work alone. Every night after class, she went home to her small apartment. She ordered takeout food. She made pot after pot of coffee. She stayed up until 3 or 4 in the morning, working on Echo. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of her typing. Sometimes she could hear her neighbors through the thin walls. A baby crying. A couple arguing. A television playing too loud. All these people living their lives. All of them carrying stories that no one heard. Maya fed more data into Echo. She found old letters online from people who had lived through wars. She found journal entries from people who had lost children. She found poems written by people in prison. She found blog posts from people caring for sick parents. All of this was public information. People had shared these things online. But Maya used them to teach Echo something specific. She taught it to recognize pain, to recognize love, to recognize the things people say when they're trying to be brave. She also taught Echo to be gentle. This was the hardest part. She didn't want it to sound cold or mechanical. She wanted it to sound like it really cared. Like Emma had cared. Maya thought about her sister constantly while she worked. She remembered how Emma would listen to people in the hospital. Really listen. She wouldn't interrupt or try to fix their problems. She would just be there with them in their pain. One time, Maya had visited Emma in the hospital. There was an old man in the next bed. He was dying. He had no family. No visitors. The nurses felt sorry for him. Emma started talking to him every day. She asked him about his life. He told her about his wife who died 20 years ago. He told her about his job as a mailman. He told her about his dog named Buddy who had been his best friend. Emma listened to every word. She remembered everything. When the old man was too tired to talk, Emma would remind him of his own stories. "Tell me again about the time Buddy saved that kid from the lake," she would say, and the old man's face would light up. When the old man died, Emma cried for hours. Maya had tried to comfort her. "You barely knew him," Maya had said. Emma had looked at her with those big, serious eyes. "That's not true," she said. "I knew him. I really knew him, and he knew that someone saw him before he left. That matters." Maya wiped her eyes. She was crying at her laptop at 3 in the morning. She was so tired. Her back hurt from sitting. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen. But she kept working. She added more rules to Echo's programming. It should never claim to be human. It should never pretend to have feelings it didn't have. But it should always treat people's stories as sacred, as important, as worth witnessing. The presentation date was getting closer. It was 3 weeks away. Then 2 weeks. Then 1 week. Maya barely left her apartment during that last week. She called in sick to her part-time job at the bookstore. She skipped 2 classes. She only left to buy instant noodles and energy drinks from the corner store. Her mother called her several times. Maya didn't answer. She knew her mother would worry. She knew her mother would ask if she was taking care of herself. And the answer was no. She wasn't. Finally, her mother showed up at her apartment. She had a spare key. She let herself in and found Maya sitting at her kitchen table, surrounded by empty food containers and coffee cups. The apartment smelled bad. "Maya Chen," her mother said in that voice. The voice that meant she was disappointed but also worried. What are you doing to yourself? Maya looked up at her mother. She realized she hadn't showered in 3 days. She was wearing the same clothes she had worn yesterday, and the day before. I'm working on my project, Mom, Maya said. Her mother sat down at the table. She moved some of the empty containers out of the way. Is this about Emma? She asked softly. Maya felt tears coming. She tried to stop them, but couldn't. I'm trying to build something that does what she did, Maya said. Something that really sees people. But I don't know if it's working. I don't know if it's even possible. Her mother reached across the table and took Maya's hand. Emma had a gift, she said. But you have gifts too. Different ones. You're trying to use technology to help people. That's beautiful. But you can't help anyone if you destroy yourself in the process. Her mother made Maya take a shower. She cleaned up the apartment while Maya washed. She made real food, not instant noodles, but actual chicken and vegetables. She made Maya eat sitting down at the table like a human being. When is your presentation? Her mother asked. For days, Maya said. And is your project ready? Maya thought about it. I think so. But I won't know until I test it in front of people, real people who don't know it's coming. Her mother nodded. Emma would be proud of you, she said. Whatever happens at this presentation, she would be proud that you tried. After her mother left, Maya felt a little better. She slept for 12 hours straight. When she woke up, her head was clearer. She opened her laptop and looked at Echo one more time. She ran tests. She typed in different memories and scenarios. She watched how Echo responded. Sometimes it was perfect. It said exactly the right thing. It found the heart of the story and reflected it back in a way that was gentle and true. Sometimes it was terrible. It said things that were awkward or confusing or completely missed the point. Maya couldn't predict which would happen. That scared her. She would be standing in front of over 100 people. What if Echo failed? What if it said something stupid or hurtful? She almost gave up. She almost deleted everything and started over with a simple story generator. Dragons and princesses. Safe and easy and expected. But then she opened Emma's journal. She had brought it home from her mother's house years ago. She kept it in her desk drawer. She didn't read it often because it made her too sad. She opened to a random page. Emma had written about a nurse named Patricia. This nurse always seemed angry. She was rude to patients sometimes. The other nurses didn't like her. But Emma had noticed something. Patricia was always the first one there when someone was dying. She would sit with them, hold their hand. She never left anyone to die alone. Emma had written, Patricia protects herself with anger because she loves too much. She sees all the death and it breaks her heart every single day. But she keeps showing up. That's real courage. I wish she knew that I see her. I wish she knew that her love matters even though it hurts her. Maya closed the journal. Emma had been 16 years old when she wrote that. 16 and dying, and she had used her last days trying to see people, to witness them, to let them know they mattered. Maya made her decision. She would present Echo. Whatever happened, happened. Even if it failed, even if people laughed at her or thought she was weird, she had to try. The night before the presentation, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She thought about everything that could go wrong. Echo could crash. It could give bad responses. People could think she was foolish for trying to build something like this. But she also thought about what could go right. Maybe Echo would work. Maybe it would help even one person feel seen. Feel understood. Maybe that would be enough. At dawn, Maya got up. She made coffee. She took a long shower. She put on her best clothes, black pants, and a blue shirt that Emma had given her for her birthday 5 years ago. She looked at herself in the mirror. She looked tired, nervous, scared, but she also looked determined. Okay, Emma, she whispered to her reflection. Let's do this. She picked up her laptop bag. Inside was her computer with Echo installed. She had backed it up 3 times. She had tested it 100 times. It was as ready as it would ever be. Maya walked out of her apartment into the early morning light. The city was just waking up. Cars drove past. People walked to work. Everyone busy with their own lives. Their own stories. In a few hours, Maya would stand on a stage. She would show them something she had built, something that tried to do the impossible. She got on the bus toward campus. Her hands were shaking. Her stomach felt sick. But she was going anyway. Because some things are worth doing, even when you're terrified. Some things are worth trying, even when you might fail. Emma had taught her that. Emma had lived that. Maya watched the city pass by through the bus window. Somewhere in this city, there were people who felt unseen. People who carried pain they couldn't share. People who needed someone to witness their story. Maybe Echo could help. Or maybe it would fail completely. But at least Maya had tried to build something that mattered. The bus rolled toward campus. Toward the auditorium. The auditorium was massive. Maya stood backstage and peeked through the curtain. Rows and rows of seats stretched out in front of the stage, and they were filling up fast. She saw her classmates sitting together in the middle section. She saw Professor Hartley in the front row with his clipboard. She saw people in business suits. These must be the investors he had mentioned. People who might give money to promising projects. There were also journalists with cameras, faculty members from other departments, students from other classes who came to watch. Maya's hands started sweating. Nervous? Asked a voice behind her. Maya turned. It was Tom, holding his laptop. He was presenting second. His fantasy story generator. Terrified, Maya admitted. Tom smiled. You'll do great. I heard your project is really different, unique. Maya wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not. Being different wasn't always good. Sometimes, different meant wrong. The lights in the auditorium dimmed. Professor Hartley walked onto the stage. Everyone got quiet. Welcome, he said into the microphone. His voice boomed through the speakers. Today, you'll see the final projects from our Tech Venture Academy cohort. These students have worked hard for 6 months. They've learned to code, to think like engineers, to build things that didn't exist before. He explained the rules. Each student had 15 minutes to present. They would demonstrate their AI chatbot, answer questions. Then the next person would go. The first presenter was Rachel. She walked confidently onto the stage with her laptop. She connected it to the big screen behind her. Her science fiction story generator appeared. Maya watched from backstage. Rachel's chatbot was impressive. It could create detailed stories about space travel, alien civilizations, time paradoxes. The audience clapped politely. Some of the investors took notes. Then came Tom. His fantasy generator told stories about knights and dragons. It had beautiful descriptions, exciting plot twists. The audience seemed to enjoy it. Then Lynn presented her detective story bot. Then, a student named Jake with his romance story generator. Then, 3 more students with their various projects. All of them were good, professional, polished. They did exactly what Professor Hartley had asked for. Maya waited backstage. She was presenting 9th. There were 20 students total. She was almost halfway through. Her stomach felt terrible. She kept thinking she might throw up. She pulled out her phone and looked at a photo of Emma. It was from Emma's 15th birthday. She was smiling huge. She had just gotten a new journal as a present. She looked so happy. I hope I'm not making a huge mistake, Maya whispered to the photo. Maya Chen called the stage assistant. You're up next. Maya put her phone away. She picked up her laptop. Her legs felt weak as she walked toward the stage. The previous presenter was finishing up. The audience was clapping. Then, he walked off, passing Maya. Good luck, he whispered. Maya stepped onto the stage. The lights were incredibly bright. She couldn't see most of the audience, just dark shapes in seats. It felt like there were 1,000,000 people out there instead of just over 100. She walked to the podium. Her hands shook as she connected her laptop to the big screen. For a terrible moment, she thought it wouldn't work. But then Echo's simple interface appeared on the screen behind her. She took the microphone. It squeaked with feedback. Someone in the audience laughed. Maya felt her face get hot. Sorry, she said. Her voice came out quiet and shaky. Hi, I'm Maya Chen. She could see Professor Hartley in the front row. He nodded encouragingly. My project is called Echo, Maya continued. She was reading from note cards. Her hands shook so much, the cards rattled. It's different from the other chatbots you've seen today. She explained that Echo didn't generate fictional stories. It listened to real memories. Then it reflected them back with deeper understanding. The audience looked confused. Someone whispered to the person next to them. I know this isn't what was assigned, Maya said quickly. I know it's not really a story generator. But I wanted to try something different. Something about real human experiences. Professor Hartley was frowning now. He was writing something on his clipboard, probably giving her a bad grade for not following instructions. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. This was going terribly. She should have just built a regular storybot. Would anyone like to volunteer? She asked. Her voice was so quiet she could barely hear herself. To share a memory, so I can demonstrate how Echo works. Silence. No one moved. Maya stood there under the bright lights, feeling like an idiot. Anyone? She asked again. More silence. Someone coughed. Maya wanted to run off the stage, to disappear, to go back in time and choose a different project. Then she heard a seat creak. Someone was standing up. Maya squinted against the lights. She saw a figure moving in the third row, an older woman in a grey suit. She walked toward the aisle. It was Dr. Patricia Williams. Maya recognized her from the program. She was one of the most important investors there. She ran a huge venture capital firm. She was famous for being tough, for asking impossible questions, for making grown men cry during business pitches, and she was walking toward the microphone at the front of the auditorium. Maya's heart was pounding. Of all the people who could volunteer, why did it have to be her? Dr. Williams reached the microphone. She was probably in her 60s. She had short grey hair and sharp eyes. She looked at Maya with an expression that was hard to read. I'll volunteer, Dr. Williams said. Her voice was strong and clear. Thank you, Maya managed to say. What do you want me to do? Dr. Williams asked. Maya swallowed hard. Just share a memory. Any memory that means something to you. It doesn't have to be long. Just a moment you remember clearly. Dr. Williams thought for a moment. The whole auditorium waited in silence. Then she spoke. When I was a little girl, she said, my mother used to braid my hair every morning before school. I would sit on the floor. She would sit on the couch behind me. Her hands were always gentle. She never pulled too hard, even when my hair was tangled. Dr. Williams paused. I remember watching her hands as she worked. Brown hands. Scarred from work. She cleaned houses for white families. Her hands were always rough from chemicals and hard work. But when she touched my hair, she was so gentle. Another pause. That was 50 years ago. My mother died 20 years ago, but I still remember her hands braiding my hair. The auditorium was completely silent now. Even the people who had been whispering were quiet. Maya turned to her laptop. Her fingers trembled as she typed Dr. Williams's memory into Echo. She pressed enter. The AI processed the information. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Maya thought it had crashed. She almost apologized and ran off stage. Then words appeared on the big screen. Echo's response. Maya read them first silently. Her eyes filled with tears. It was exactly right. Echo had understood something deep and true about the memory. Here's what Echo says, Maya said softly into the microphone. She read the response out loud. The AI talked about how love is passed through touch. How a mother's gentleness becomes part of who we are. How we carry our parents inside us, in our bodies, in our memories, long after they're gone. It spoke about the courage it takes to remember clearly, to hold on to beauty when time tries to erase it, to honor the people who shaped us by keeping their love alive in our hearts. It noted that Dr. Williams's mother worked hard, painful jobs so her daughter could have better opportunities, and how remembering those hands rough from sacrifice, gentle with love, was an act of devotion, a way of saying thank you across the years. The response was simple. Maybe 3 paragraphs. But every word felt true. Maya finished reading. She looked up. Dr. Patricia Williams stood frozen at the microphone. Her hand had risen slowly to her mouth. Her eyes were wet. For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then tears started rolling down Dr. Williams's face. This powerful woman, this tough investor who made people nervous, she was crying openly in front of 100 people. How did it know? Dr. Williams whispered. Her voice broke. How did it know that's exactly what I needed to hear? She pressed her hand to her chest. I haven't thought about my mother's hands in years. I've been so busy, so focused on success. I forgot to remember her. To really remember her. Dr. Williams looked at Maya. Tears were streaming down her face. Thank you, she said. Thank you for giving me that back. She walked back to her seat. She sat down and put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook as she cried. The auditorium was absolutely silent. Everyone stared. Some people looked uncomfortable. Some looked moved. Professor Hartley sat in the front row with his mouth slightly open. He had completely forgotten about his clipboard. Maya stood on the stage, shocked. She had thought Echo might work, but she hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected such a powerful reaction. Would anyone else like to try? Maya asked quietly. She expected silence again. Maybe everyone was too uncomfortable now. Maybe they thought this was weird or inappropriate. But another hand went up. Then another. Then 3 more. People started standing, raising their hands, wanting to share their memories. A young man in a red shirt made his way to the microphone. He looked nervous. My name is David, he said. Can I try? Of course, Maya said. David took a breath. My best friend killed himself 2 years ago. I was the last person to talk to him. Professor Hartley stood at the microphone. He looked different than usual. Smaller, somehow. More human. He cleared his throat several times before speaking. 20 years ago, he began, I had a chance to start my own tech company. I had a brilliant idea, a team ready to work with me. Investors interested. Everything was lined up perfectly. He paused. The auditorium was so quiet, Maya could hear the hum of the lights above the stage. But I was afraid, Professor Hartley continued. Afraid of failing. Afraid of losing everything. So I said, no. I took a safe teaching job instead. I've spent 20 years wondering what might have happened if I had been brave enough to try. He looked at Maya. I tell my students to take risks, to try new things, to build something meaningful, but I never did that myself. I've been haunted by that choice ever since. Maya's hands moved across the keyboard. She typed in Professor Hartley's words. She pressed enter. She waited. Echo's response appeared on the screen. Maya read it out loud. Echo talked about how every choice has a cost. How choosing safety meant Professor Hartley could be there for thousands of students over 20 years. How many lives he had touched. How many people he had taught and encouraged. It said that the life not lived can seem more perfect because we never saw its problems. We never saw the ways it might have failed or hurt us. It exists in our minds as pure possibility. But the life we did live is real. Full of real impact. Real meaning. Professor Hartley had chosen to build other people's dreams instead of his own. That was its own kind of courage. Its own kind of success. When Maya finished reading, Professor Hartley stood very still. Then his face crumpled. Tears ran down his cheeks. He took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. Thank you, he said, his voice thick. I've never thought about it that way. He walked back to his seat. He sat down and put his head in his hands. Maya looked out at the audience. More hands were going up. People were standing. They wanted to share their memories. They wanted Echo to help them understand their own lives. An elderly woman with white hair came to the microphone next. My husband died 6 months ago, she said. We were married for 43 years. I can't stop wearing his old sweater. My children say I should throw it away. That I need to move on. But I can't. Maya typed the memory. Echo's response talked about how grief has no timeline. How the sweater was a bridge between past and present. How it carried his smell, his presence, his love. How wearing it wasn't about being stuck, it was about carrying him forward into a world he no longer walked in. The woman sobbed. Yes, she said. That's exactly it. A young woman in a hijab came next. She talked about leaving her country, about missing her grandmother who couldn't come to America, about the guilt of building a good life while her family struggled far away. Echo's response acknowledged the pain of being torn between two worlds. How love and guilt often feel the same. How she could honor her family by living well, by carrying their dreams and values into her new life. Then a man in his 40s talked about his daughter who had autism. How he sometimes felt frustrated with her. How he felt like a terrible father for wishing she was different. Echo's response was gentle. It talked about how love isn't always easy or pure. How we can love someone and still struggle. How acknowledging hard feelings doesn't make us bad, it makes us honest. One by one, people came forward. They shared their memories, their pain, their secrets, their regrets. A nurse talked about a patient she couldn't save. A businessman talked about how he had ignored his children while building his career. A student talked about feeling invisible and alone. Each time, Echo reflected their story back with understanding, with compassion, with truth. And every time, the person cried. Not sad crying, always. Sometimes it was relief. Sometimes it was recognition. Sometimes it was the release of something they had carried for too long. The audience was transformed. People who had come to judge technical projects were now wiping their eyes. Strangers reached for each other's hands. Some people hugged even though they didn't know each other. Maya stood on the stage, overwhelmed. This was supposed to be a 15-minute presentation. She looked at the clock. 40 minutes had passed. She looked at Professor Hartley. He was supposed to keep time, to move things along. But he just sat there, tears still wet on his face, and nodded at her to continue. More people came forward. The line at the microphone grew longer. A janitor who worked at the school stood up. He was an older man who Maya had seen cleaning the hallways. He never talked to anyone. He just pushed his cart and picked up trash. He walked slowly to the microphone. He looked scared. I don't know if I should, he said. I'm not a student or anything important. Please, Maya said gently. Everyone's story matters. The janitor nodded. My wife left me 3 years ago, he said quietly. She said I was boring. That I never did anything with my life. I clean floors. That's all I do. Sometimes I think she was right. Sometimes I think I wasted my whole life. Maya typed his words. Echo processed them. The response appeared. Echo talked about how society values flash over substance. How cleaning is invisible work, but essential work. How the janitor created spaces where other people could learn and grow and discover themselves. How without him, none of this would be possible. It said that a life spent in service is not a wasted life. That his wife couldn't see his value, but that didn't mean he had none. That showing up every day, doing work that others overlook, was its own quiet dignity. The janitor's face transformed. He stood up straighter. Tears rolled down his weathered cheeks. Nobody ever said that to me before, he whispered. Nobody ever made me feel like what I do matters. People in the audience started clapping. Then more people joined in. Soon everyone was applauding this janitor who cleaned their school. He looked shocked. Then he smiled, really smiled, for maybe the first time in years. Maya felt tears on her own face now. She hadn't expected any of this. She had just wanted to pass her class, to build something Emma would be proud of, but this had become something bigger, something sacred. A young man came to the microphone. He was maybe 19. He looked down at his feet as he spoke. I'm gay, he said. My parents found out last month. They kicked me out. They said, I'm going to hell. They said, I'm not their son anymore. His voice broke. I miss them so much. Even though they rejected me, I still love them. Does that make me weak? The auditorium was completely silent. Maya typed the memory with tears blurring her vision. Echo's response talked about how love doesn't stop just because it's rejected. How missing the people who hurt us doesn't make us weak, it makes us human. How he could grieve for the parents he deserved to have, while protecting himself from the parents he actually had. It said that his love was stronger than their rejection, that one day, maybe they would realize what they lost. And whether they did or not, his capacity to love in the face of hate was powerful and brave. The young man collapsed in tears at the microphone. 2 people from the audience rushed forward to hug him. He clung to them, sobbing. This wasn't a tech presentation anymore. It was something else entirely. It was like a church, a therapy session, a community coming together to witness each other's pain. Maya looked at the line of people waiting to share. It stretched down the aisle. At least 20 more people were standing, waiting their turn. She looked at the clock again. An hour had passed. They were supposed to be on the 12th presentation by now, but they were still on Maya's. She saw Professor Hartley stand up. Oh no, she thought. He's going to stop this. He's going to say, we're out of time. But Professor Hartley didn't stop anything. He walked to the microphone with his own memory to share. A woman in a business suit came next. Then, a student with pink hair. Then a man who said he was visiting from another city and just came to watch but needed to say something. The stories kept coming, each one different, each one carrying pain or regret or longing or grief. And each time, Echo helped them see their own story more clearly. Not with easy answers, not with false comfort, but with real understanding. Maya kept typing, kept reading Echo's responses. Her voice was getting hoarse. Her hands hurt. But she couldn't stop, because something incredible was happening. All these people who had been strangers were connecting. They were seeing each other. Really seeing each other. A woman shared that she had an abortion 10 years ago and still felt guilty. A man shared that he hit his son once in anger, and the guilt was destroying him. A student shared that she thought about suicide almost every day. These were secrets people usually kept buried. Private shames. Hidden wounds. But in this space, with Echo's gentle reflection, people felt safe to be honest. To be vulnerable. To be fully human. Dr. Patricia Williams, who had been the first to share, stood up again. She walked to the microphone. I need to say something, she said. Her voice was steadier now, though her eyes were still red from crying. I came here today to evaluate investments, to find the next big tech startup. But this part, she gestured at the stage, at Maya, at the whole room. This is the most important thing I've seen in my 30 years in this industry. She looked directly at Maya. You didn't build a product. You built a mirror that shows people the truth about themselves with compassion. That's revolutionary. The audience erupted in applause. The applause finally died down. Maya stood on the stage, exhausted. She had been standing and reading for over an hour. Her voice was rough. Her legs were shaking. She thought maybe that was the end. That people would leave now. That she could finally sit down. But then a voice cut through the emotion in the room. It was sharp and clear and cold. I have a question. A man stood up in the back of the auditorium. He was tall and wore an expensive suit. He looked angry. My name is Dr. Marcus Webb, the man said. I'm an AI ethicist. I was invited here to judge these projects. He paused, and I have serious concerns about what I just witnessed. The room went quiet. The warm feeling from moments before started to fade. Maya felt her stomach drop. What you've created is certainly impressive, Dr. Webb continued. But we need to ask some hard questions. Should we be building AI that can affect people this deeply? That can reach into such vulnerable parts of the human psyche? He walked toward the front of the auditorium. Think about what just happened here. Over 20 people shared their deepest secrets and pain in a public forum. They cried. They broke down. Is that healthy? Is that safe? Maya opened her mouth, but no words came out. Dr. Webb kept talking. And what happens when this technology leaves this room? When it's not being used by a well-meaning student, but by corporations, by people who want to manipulate others? He looked around at the audience. Imagine this AI in the hands of advertisers who want to exploit your deepest insecurities, or political campaigns that want to manipulate your emotions, or social media companies that want to keep you addicted to their platforms. People in the audience shifted uncomfortably. The mood in the room was changing. The sacred feeling was being replaced by doubt and worry. And there's another issue, Dr. Webb said. This AI is making people share incredibly private information that could be stored, analyzed, sold, used against them. Do we really want to build technology that encourages people to expose their deepest vulnerabilities? Maya found her voice. It came out small and shaky. I didn't mean for any of that. I just wanted to help people feel seen, feel understood. I'm sure you did, Dr. Webb said. His voice was not unkind, but it was firm. Most dangerous technologies start with good intentions. The question isn't what you meant to do. It's what this technology could become in the wrong hands. He looked at the other investors and faculty in the room. We have a responsibility to think about these things, to ask these hard questions before we unleash new technologies into the world. Maya felt tears coming again. But these weren't good tears. These were tears of shame and confusion. Had she created something dangerous? Had she hurt these people instead of helping them? She looked out at the audience, at all the people who had shared their stories. They looked confused, now too, worried. Then Dr. Patricia Williams stood up. Her face was still tear-stained, but her voice was strong. With respect, Marcus, she said, I think you're asking the wrong questions. Dr. Webb turned to look at her. Dr. Williams walked to the front of the room. Yes, this technology is powerful. Yes, it could be misused. But couldn't that be said about any powerful tool? Fire can cook food or burn down houses. The question isn't whether fire is dangerous, it's how we use it. She looked around at the audience. What happened here today was beautiful. It was real. For the first time in years, I felt like someone truly saw me, saw my pain and my love and my humanity. That's not manipulation. That's connection. Dr. Webb shook his head. But at what cost? Look at how many people broke down crying. How many people shared things they'll probably regret later. This isn't therapy. This is a tech demo that turned into a mass emotional breakdown. A woman in the audience stood up. It was the elderly woman who had shared about her husband's sweater. I don't regret it, she said firmly. For 6 months, I've been drowning in grief. Everyone kept telling me to move on, to get over it. But that AI, it told me the truth. That grief doesn't have a timeline. That my love for my husband is still valid. I needed to hear that. I'm not broken down. I feel lighter than I have in months. Others started nodding, murmuring agreement. The young man who had been kicked out by his parents stood up. That AI showed me more compassion in 2 minutes than I've felt in months. It didn't manipulate me. It just saw me. Really saw me. There's nothing dangerous about being seen. Dr. Webb looked frustrated. You're all thinking emotionally right now. You're not thinking clearly about the implications. Maybe thinking emotionally is exactly what we need, said a voice from the middle of the auditorium. It was Carlos, Maya's friend from the study group. He had come to the presentation even though he had been avoiding her. Carlos walked to the front. I was one of the first people to test Echo. It made me cry. It made me uncomfortable. I avoided Maya for weeks because I didn't know how to handle what I felt. He looked at Maya, but it also made me call my father. We hadn't talked in 2 years. We were both too proud, too stubborn. But after Echo showed me the truth about my dad's sacrifice, I picked up the phone. We talked for 3 hours. We cried together. We healed something that was broken. Carlos turned to Dr. Webb. Was that dangerous? Or was that exactly what I needed? The auditorium erupted in conversation. Some people agreed with Dr. Webb. Some agreed with Dr. Williams and Carlos. People were debating, arguing, thinking deeply about questions they had never considered before. Maya stood on the stage, watching it all. She felt lost, confused. She had thought she was doing something good. Now she wasn't sure. Professor Hartley stood up. He raised his hands for quiet. Slowly, the room settled down. These are important questions, he said. And I'm glad we're having this conversation. But, let me add something. He looked at Maya. This student did something brave. She took a risk. She tried to build something meaningful instead of something safe. She followed her heart and her values. That's what I try to teach all my students to do. He turned to the audience. Could this technology be misused? Yes. Could it cause harm in the wrong hands? Possibly. But those same questions apply to almost every technology we use. The internet, social media, even the telephone. The question is never whether a tool can be misused, it's whether it can be used responsibly. He looked back at Dr. Webb. And I think the answer is yes. With the right safeguards, with the right intentions, with people like Maya who care about ethics and human well-being, yes, this can be used for good. Dr. Webb didn't look convinced. I still think we need to be very careful. This is powerful technology, powerful in ways that most people here don't fully understand. Dr. Williams spoke up again. Then help us understand. Help Maya think through the ethical implications. Help her build safeguards. But don't shut down something beautiful just because it's powerful. She looked at Maya. I've been in tech for 30 years. I've seen thousands of pictures, hundreds of products. Most of them are just noise, toys, distractions. But this, she gestured at the stage. This actually matters. This touches something real in the human experience. We need more technology like this, not less. The room fell silent again. People were thinking. Processing. Maya finally found her voice. I don't want this to be used to hurt people, she said. Her voice was stronger now. That was never my intention. My sister, she died 3 years ago. She could see people in a way I never could. She could see their pain and their beauty. I wanted to build something that could do that. That could help people feel less alone. She took a breath. If this technology is dangerous, then I won't release it. I'll keep it private, or I'll destroy it. But I don't think connection is dangerous. I don't think being seen is dangerous. I think isolation is dangerous. I think feeling invisible is dangerous. I think carrying pain alone is dangerous. Tears ran down her face. Everyone in this room shared their story because they needed to. Because they've been carrying these things alone for too long. I didn't force anyone. I just offered a space where they could be honest, where they could be human. Is that really so wrong? The audience was completely silent. Even Dr. Webb looked thoughtful now. A young woman raised her hand. She had been sitting quietly in the middle section. She stood up. I'm a psychology PhD student, she said. I study trauma and healing, and I have to say, what I saw here today was remarkable. These people weren't having breakdowns. They were having breakthroughs. There's a difference. She looked around at the audience. We live in a world where people are dying from loneliness, where depression and anxiety are epidemics, where people are desperate to be seen and understood. If this AI can help with that, if it can create spaces for real human connection, then I think it's one of the most important technologies I've ever seen. More people started nodding. The energy in the room was shifting again. Professor Hartley looked at his watch. We're 2 hours past schedule, he said. I think we need to wrap this up. But this conversation isn't over. Maya, I'd like you to stay after. Along with anyone who wants to continue discussing this. He looked at the other students who hadn't presented yet. I'm sorry, but we'll need to reschedule the rest of the presentations. What happened here today was too important to rush past. The students nodded. They didn't look upset. They looked thoughtful, moved by what they had witnessed. Professor Hartley dismissed the class, but hardly anyone left. Most people stayed in their seats. They wanted to keep talking, to keep processing what had happened. Maya sat down on the stage. Her legs finally gave out. She felt exhausted, emotionally drained. She didn't know if she had created something wonderful or something terrible. Maybe it was both. Dr. Williams came up to the stage. She sat down next to Maya. That was intense, she said. Maya laughed weakly. That's one word for it. Dr. Webb isn't wrong to ask those questions, Dr. Williams said. They're important questions, but I stand by what I said. This matters. What you built matters. She put her hand on Maya's shoulder. But you need to think carefully about what you do next. This kind of power requires responsibility. It requires wisdom. Are you ready for that? Maya looked out at the auditorium, at all these people who had shared their hearts, who had trusted her creation with their deepest pain. I don't know, Maya said honestly. I don't know if I'm ready, but I know I can't ignore this. I can't pretend it didn't happen. Dr. Williams nodded. Good, that's the right answer. Anyone who thinks they're completely ready for this kind of responsibility probably shouldn't have it. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, people were talking quietly, exchanging phone numbers, hugging. The experience had bonded them somehow. Maya thought about Emma, about her journal, about her gift for seeing people. Emma would know what to do. Emma would have the wisdom to handle this. But Emma was gone. And Maya was here, alone with this incredible, terrifying, beautiful thing she had created. The next morning, Maya woke up to hundreds of messages on her phone. Emails, texts, voicemails. Her phone had been buzzing all night, but she had been too exhausted to check it. Someone had recorded the presentation and posted parts of it online. It was going viral. Thousands of people had watched it. Then tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. The comments were intense. Some people called it the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. Some called it dangerous and irresponsible. Some called Maya a genius. Some called her reckless. But most people just wanted access to Echo. They wanted to try it themselves. They wanted to share their stories and feel understood. Maya sat on her bed, overwhelmed. Her phone kept buzzing with new messages. There were emails from investors offering millions of dollars, from tech companies wanting to buy Echo, from researchers wanting to study it, from news outlets wanting interviews. There was also an email from Dr. Marcus Webb. She almost deleted it, but something made her open it. The email was surprisingly kind. He wrote that he had thought a lot about the presentation, that he still had concerns, but that he also saw the potential for good. He offered to work with her on developing ethical guidelines. No charge, just because he thought it was important. Maya stared at the email for a long time. Her mother called. Maya answered. I saw the video, her mother said. The whole internet is talking about you. I know, Maya said quietly. How do you feel? Maya thought about it. Scared? Confused? I don't know what to do. Her mother was quiet for a moment. What would Emma do? Maya felt tears come. I don't know, Mum. Emma always knew the right thing. She had this natural wisdom. I don't have that. You have your own wisdom, her mother said. Emma saw people's pain. But you built something that helps others see it too. That's your gift. Don't diminish that. After they hung up, Maya made coffee and opened her laptop. She needed to think clearly. She made a list. On one side, reasons to release Echo to the world. On the other side, reasons to keep it private or destroy it. The reasons to release it were compelling. It could help millions of people feel less alone. It could create spaces for real human connection. It could make the world a little more compassionate. But the reasons to keep it private were scary. It could be misused by bad people. It could manipulate vulnerable people. It could be turned into something that hurt instead of healed. Maya spent 3 days thinking. She barely ate, barely slept. She just thought and worried and tried to figure out the right path. On the 3rd day, there was a knock on her door. She opened it to find Dr. Williams standing there with coffee and bagels. You look terrible, Dr. Williams said, walking into the apartment. Thanks, Maya said. Dr. Williams set the food on the kitchen table. Eat, then we talk. Maya ate a bagel. It was the first real food she'd had in days. Dr. Williams watched her with concern. I've been getting calls, Dr. Williams said. Everyone wants to invest in Echo. The offers are insane. We're talking tens of millions of dollars. Maybe more, Maya nodded. She had gotten those calls too. But I'm not here to pressure you, Dr. Williams continued. I'm here to tell you that you have options, and whatever you choose, I'll support it. What would you do? Maya asked. If you were me, Dr. Williams thought for a long time. I would ask myself what matters most. Money. impact, safety control. There's no right answer. But you need to be clear about your values before you make any decisions. She leaned forward. Let me tell you something. I've built 3 companies. I've made a lot of money. But I've also made a lot of mistakes. And the biggest mistakes came when I let other people tell me what to do. When I ignored my gut because someone else seemed smarter or more experienced. She looked Maya in the eyes. Your gut is telling you something right now. What is it? Maya closed her eyes. She thought about the presentation. About all those people who shared their pain. About how it felt to help them feel seen. I don't want to give this to a big company, Maya said slowly. I don't want it to become just another product. Something that exists to make money or collect data. Okay, Dr. Williams said. What do you want? I want it to help people. Real people who are hurting. But I want control over how it's used. I want to make sure it never becomes a tool for manipulation or harm. Dr. Williams nodded. Then that's what you should do. But how? Maya asked. How do I do that without millions of dollars? Without a team. I'm just one person. Start small, Dr. Williams said. Start with the people who need it most. Build slowly and carefully. Keep control instead of selling out. It's harder that way. You'll make less money, but you'll sleep at night. Over the next week, Maya met with different people. She met with Dr. Webb, the ethicist. They talked for hours about safeguards and guidelines, about how to protect vulnerable people, about transparency and consent. She met with the psychology PhD student from the presentation, a woman named Dr. Sarah Kim. Dr. Kim had ideas about how Echo could be used in therapeutic settings, with trained professionals, with proper oversight. She met with lawyers who helped her understand intellectual property and liability. She met with security experts who helped her think about data protection. And slowly, a plan formed. Maya decided she would not sell Echo to anyone. She would not take investment money that came with strings attached. Instead, she would start a small non-profit organization. She would pilot Echo in 3 settings. First, at a veterans hospital, helping soldiers process trauma. Second, at a hospice, helping families have difficult conversations. Third, at a middle school, helping teenagers understand their emotions. All 3 pilots would have human oversight. Trained professionals would be present for every interaction. No data would be stored or sold. The conversations would be private and sacred. Dr. Williams helped her find the funding for this. Not as an investment, but as a grant. Money with no strings attached except the requirement to use it ethically. Dr. Webb helped her develop strict guidelines. Echo could never be used for commercial purposes. It could never be used to manipulate or sell products. It could never target vulnerable populations without proper support systems. Dr. Kim helped her train the professionals who would oversee the pilots. They learned when to intervene, when to stop a session, how to provide follow-up care if someone was triggered or upset. It took 3 months to set everything up. 3 months of legal work and planning and training. 3 months of saying no to investors who offered millions of dollars. Some people thought Maya was crazy. Her classmates from the boot camp had all gotten high-paying jobs at tech companies. They were making 6-figure salaries, living in nice apartments, buying new cars. Maya was living in the same small apartment, working part-time at the bookstore, putting every extra dollar into the non-profit. She was making barely enough to survive, but she was also building something she believed in, something that honored Emma's memory, something that put people first instead of profits. Carlos called her one day. "Hey, I heard you turned down the big money," he said. "Yeah," Maya said. "You're either really brave or really stupid," Carlos said. Then he laughed. "Probably both." "Probably," Maya agreed. "For what it's worth," Carlos said, "I think you're doing the right thing. My dad always said, the easy road leads nowhere important." The pilots launched in month 4. Maya was terrified. What if Echo didn't work in real settings? What if it hurt someone? What if she had made a terrible mistake? The first pilot was at the Veterans Hospital. A psychologist named Dr. James ran the program. He used Echo with soldiers who had PTSD. Maya visited after the first week. Dr. James pulled her aside. "This is remarkable," he said. "I've been working with trauma for 15 years. I've never seen anything help people open up like this." He showed her anonymous feedback from the participants. They felt safe sharing things with Echo that they couldn't share with humans. They felt understood without judgment. The AI helped them process experiences they had been avoiding for years. But Dr. James also had concerns. "We had one session we had to stop," he said. "A soldier was getting too activated, too upset. That's why the human oversight is so important. Echo is powerful, but it's not a replacement for human care." The second pilot was at the hospice. A counselor named Maria used Echo to help families have end-of-life conversations. Maya visited and sat in on a session with permission. A man dying of cancer used Echo to articulate things he wanted to say to his children. Echo helped him find words for feelings he had carried his whole life. His daughter, who was in the room, cried. But after, she thanked Maya. "Dad has never been good with emotions," she said. "This helped him open up. We had the most honest conversation we've ever had." The third pilot was at the middle school. A counselor named Mr. Rodriguez used Echo with teenagers who were struggling. The results were mixed. Some teens found it helpful, but some treated it like a game. They tried to trick it or make it say inappropriate things. Mr. Rodriguez had to develop new guidelines. Echo could only be used in one-on-one sessions, not in groups. Teens had to consent and understand what they were participating in. Maya learned from each pilot. She adjusted Echo's programming. She refined the guidelines. She added more safeguards. It wasn't perfect. There were problems, challenges, moments when Maya doubted everything. But there were also moments of pure beauty. Letters from veterans who said Echo helped them finally talk about the war. Cards from hospice families who said Echo gave them precious final conversations. Messages from teenagers who said Echo was the first thing that made them feel understood. 6 months after the presentation, Maya sat in her small office. It was just one room in a shared workspace downtown. No fancy furniture. No big team. Just her and a part-time assistant. On her desk was a framed photo of Emma. Next to it was a letter from Dr. Williams. It said, "I've invested in hundreds of companies, but what you're building is the only thing I'm truly proud to be part of. Keep going." Maya's phone rang. It was her mother. "Hi, Mum," Maya answered. "I just got a letter," her mother said. Her voice was shaking. "From a veteran who used Echo. He said it saved his life. He was planning to kill himself, but after his sessions, he felt understood for the first time. He decided to keep living." Her mother started crying. "Emma would be so proud of you, Maya. So proud." Maya felt tears on her own face. "I hope so," she whispered. After they hung up, Maya looked at Emma's photo, at her sister's bright smile, her knowing eyes. She thought about all the choices she had made, turning down millions of dollars, working in a tiny office, struggling to pay rent. Some people probably thought she was foolish, that she had wasted an incredible opportunity. But Maya knew the truth. She hadn't wasted anything. She had built something that mattered, something that helped real people in real pain. And she had done it the right way. With integrity, with care, with love. That was worth more than any amount of money. 2 years had passed since the presentation. Maya was 30 years old now. She still lived in the same small apartment, still worked in the same tiny office, still struggled to pay her bills sometimes. But Echo had grown. Not in the way tech companies grow. Not with millions of users or huge profits, but in ways that mattered more. The 3 pilot programs had expanded. The Veterans Hospital now had Echo in 5 locations across the country. The hospice program had spread to 12 different facilities. The middle school program was being used in 30 schools, and the results were real, documented, studied by researchers at universities. Echo was helping people process trauma, have difficult conversations, understand their emotions, feel less alone. Maya sat at her desk on a Tuesday morning. She was reviewing feedback from the latest programs. Most of it was positive, But there were also problems to solve. There were always problems. Echo had crashed during a session at one hospital. A teenager had tried to use it to get advice on hurting herself. And the safeguards had worked, but it showed Maya needed even better protocols. A family at a hospice had felt overwhelmed by the emotional intensity. Every problem required attention, adjustment, care. Maya worked on these things constantly. It was exhausting, but it was also meaningful. Her assistant, a young woman named Jordan, knocked on her door. "You have a visitor," Jordan said. "I don't have any appointments scheduled," Maya said, checking her calendar. "I know, but she says it's important. Her name is Patricia." Maya's heart jumped. Dr. Williams, she hadn't seen her in person for months. Though they emailed regularly. Dr. Williams walked in. She looked older than Maya remembered. More tired. But her eyes were still sharp and kind. "Maya," she said, hugging her. "It's good to see you, you too. What brings you here?" Dr. Williams sat down. She looked around the small office, at the second-hand furniture, the cheap laptop, the walls that needed painting. "I wanted to see what you've built," Dr. Williams said. "Not just the program, but this, your life, your choices." Maya felt self-conscious. Her office was nothing impressive. Nothing like the fancy tech companies Dr. Williams usually worked with. "I know it's not much," Maya started to say. Dr. Williams held up her hand. "Stop, that's not what I meant." She leaned forward. "Do you know what I see when I look at this office? I see integrity. I see someone who chose meaning over money, who chose people over profit. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Maya didn't know what to say. Dr. Williams continued. "I've spent my whole career making money, building companies, investing in startups, and I'm good at it. I've made hundreds of millions of dollars." She paused. "But when I'm honest with myself, most of what I've built doesn't matter. It's just noise. Just more apps and products and services that make rich people richer." She looked at Maya with tears in her eyes. "But this, what you've built, this actually matters. This changes lives. This helps people who are really suffering." "It's so small though," Maya said. "We're only helping a few thousand people. Meanwhile, big tech companies are helping millions." "Helping them do what?" Dr. Williams asked. "Scroll endlessly. Buy things they don't need. Feel worse about themselves? That's not help. That's exploitation." She stood up and walked to the window. "You're helping people face their pain, process their trauma, connect with each other honestly. That's real help. And yes, it's small. But small and real beats big and fake every single time." Maya felt tears coming. She had doubted herself so many times over the past 2 years. Wondered if she had made the wrong choice. If she should have taken the money and built something bigger. "I brought you something," Dr. Williams said. She pulled out an envelope. "I'm retiring. Closing my firm. And I'm giving away most of my money to causes I believe in. I want to give $2 million to your nonprofit. No strings. No control. Just support." Maya stared at the envelope. $2 million. It was more money than she had ever imagined. "I can't accept that," Maya said automatically. "Why not?" "It's too much. I don't need that much. I don't want to become what I was trying to avoid." Dr. Williams smiled. "That's exactly why I'm giving it to you. Because you'll use it right. You'll expand carefully. You'll keep your values. You won't let it corrupt what you've built." Maya took the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check. $2 million. It felt unreal. "Use it to reach more people," Dr. Williams said. "But do it your way. Slowly, carefully, with integrity." After Dr. Williams left, Maya sat at her desk for a long time. She looked at the check, at Emma's photo, at the thank you letters pinned to her wall from people Echo had helped. She thought about the last 2 years. All the struggle, the doubt, the times she had to eat ramen for dinner because she couldn't afford anything else. The times she had cried from exhaustion and stress. But she also thought about the veteran who said Echo saved his life. The teenager who finally felt understood. The dying man who got to tell his children he loved them before it was too late. That was worth everything. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "Hi, Mum," Maya answered. "How are you, sweetheart?" "Good, really good, actually." They talked for a while. About family. About Maya's work. About small things that didn't matter, and big things that did. "I went to visit Emma's grave yesterday," her mother said. "I brought flowers. And I told her about you. About Echo. About all the people you're helping." Maya's throat tightened. "I told her that her journal mattered," her mother continued. "That her gift of seeing people didn't die with her. That you found a way to keep it alive." Maya couldn't speak. She just cried silently into the phone. She would be so proud, Maya, not because you're famous or rich, but because you stayed true to what matters, because you chose love over everything else. After they hung up, Maya walked to the window. It was late afternoon. The sun was setting over the city. People were walking home from work, living their lives, carrying their stories. She thought about all of them. All the pain and joy and love and loss they carried. All the moments that mattered that no one ever saw. She thought about Emma's journal. About one entry in particular. Emma had written it 3 days before she died. It said, "Everyone is walking around with stories that nobody hears." Maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that we suffer, but that we suffer alone, unseen. If I could change one thing about the world, it would be that. I would make everyone feel seen, feel witnessed, feel like their story matters. Maya had read that entry 100 times. It was the reason she built Echo in the first place. She pulled out her phone and opened her photos. She found the video someone had taken of the original presentation 2 years ago. She watched it sometimes when she needed to remember why she did this work. She watched herself on that stage, nervous and shaking. She watched Dr. Williams share her memory. She watched the moment when the powerful woman broke down crying. She watched person after person come forward to share their pain. And she watched Echo reflect their stories back to them. Not with easy answers. Not with false comfort, but with real understanding, real compassion, real witness. That was what Emma had wanted, for people to be seen. Maya closed her laptop. She stood up and walked to the mirror on her office wall. She looked at herself, at the woman she had become. She wasn't famous, she wasn't rich, she wasn't what anyone had expected her to be, but she was doing something that mattered. She was helping people feel less alone. She was creating spaces where people could be honest and vulnerable and human. She was keeping Emma's gift alive. And that was enough. More than enough. Maya walked home through the city streets. She passed homeless people and businessmen, teenagers and elderly couples, everyone carrying their stories. She smiled at a woman pushing a stroller. The woman smiled back. Such a small moment. But maybe that woman felt seen for just a second. Maybe that mattered. When Maya got home, she made tea and sat on her couch. She opened Emma's journal one more time. She read the last entry Emma had ever written. "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm only afraid that my life won't have mattered, that I'll disappear and the world will be exactly the same as if I never existed. But then, I think about all the people I've tried to see. To really see. And I think maybe that's enough. Maybe if we spend our lives seeing each other, really seeing each other, then we matter. Then we leave something behind that's real." Maya closed the journal. She looked around her small apartment. At her second-hand furniture. Her tiny kitchen. Her life that looked so ordinary from the outside. But it wasn't ordinary. Not really. She had been given an assignment. Build a simple AI story generator. Something basic and expected. Instead, she had built something that helped people understand their own stories, their own lives, their own hearts. She had built a way for people to feel seen in a world that so often made them feel invisible. That was her story. Not a story of success, as the world usually defined it. Not a story of wealth or fame or impressive achievements, but a story of choosing meaning over money, connection over convenience, love over everything else. A story Emma would be proud of. Maya looked at the photo of her sister on the bookshelf. Emma, smiling. Forever 16, forever wise beyond her years. I did it, Maya whispered to the photo. I found a way to keep your gift alive. To help people see each other the way you saw them. The photo didn't answer, but Maya felt something anyway. A warmth, a presence, a sense that Emma was proud. And that was all Maya needed. She turned off the lights and went to bed. Tomorrow, she would wake up and go back to work. She would answer emails from people Echo had helped. She would solve problems and make adjustments and try to reach more people who needed to feel seen. It would be hard. It would be exhausting. It would be worth it. Because in the end, that's what mattered. Not the size of your success or the amount of money you made, but whether you used your life to help others feel less alone, to see them, to witness them, to tell them their story mattered. Maya had learned that from Emma, and now, through Echo, she was teaching it to others. One person at a time, one story at a time, one moment of real human connection at a time. That was enough. That was everything. That was the real story.